when I learned that this is going to be part of Columbus, I was like, I want to be part of it.
Hello, this is John Bernatovich, president and founder of Willory. Super excited to be on another video coffee chat with Cara North. And Cara is one of our original 13 speakers for DisruptHR Columbus. If you want to follow Cara on social media, you can follow her at Cara North 11. That's CARANORTH 11. And we will be talking to Cara in the continuation of our series of coffee chats with relevant thought leaders within the community around how she's adjusting to this temporary normal and the impact of COVID on her, as well as what she's seeing HR professionals do to support their employees. And lastly, we'll talk about Disrupt HR and her interest in that. Just as a note, we are holding a virtual roundtable, which Cara will be participating in on April 30th from 4 to 5 o'clock. So please join us for that. And without further ado, Cara, welcome. How are you doing?
Thank you. I'm doing great. Pleasure to be here and super excited to talk to you about kind of the chaos of the world and talking about, you know, what we can do to support each other and make kind of sense of what's going on.
Yeah, thank you so much. So to that point, I know most, and it looks like you're working from home. So most people have, or many people have been displaced in the midst of the stay-at-home orders. So I'm curious if who's keeping you company there and what kind of good and bad distractions have they brought into your life?
Sure. So my kind of co-pilot through adulthood at this point has been my cat Palpatine. But unfortunately, about 2 weeks ago, we got the news that he has liver cancer. So
Aw.
that has been extremely difficult to deal with. But if there's a silver lining in any of this, John, I'm very thankful that I'm able to be home and spend so much time with him. Whereas before all this hit, not only did I work full time, but I'm also finishing up my coursework for my PhD in learning technologies, and I'm part of a couple different organizations here in Columbus. So I was very busy. I very rarely did I get home at a decent time with certain things, and I always had something else to do. So the fact that that hustle and bustle has kind of stopped as far as kind of the logistics and going around, and I've really been able to focus on my cat and really give him the love and attention and let him know how much he means to me. That has been great. I mean, again, nobody wishes anything bad on their pet or animal, right? But the fact that I'm able to be there with him has been great. So that has definitely been a good thing. But as far as like transitioning my work, I've always thought that most of my work could be done remotely anyway. So what I do at the university is I help build online courses, and then I also help support faculty who might be, learning a different technology or what have you. So very rarely did I have kind of drop-ins with people and that sort of thing, maybe a couple times a week. So as far as like the work, it's definitely business as usual, if not more. I make the joke now that, the world knows what I do for a living now because of this. Before, if I said I'm an instructional designer, people would be like, well, what on earth does that mean? What does it mean to design instruction? So I feel like it's our time in the sun, and that's been really good, and it's been really encouraging to see, people learn about the profession and people asking, how do I get into that, or how did you get into it? And that has been really kind of a nice thing out of this as well. But my husband works in the hospitality industry. He is still blessed to still have a job, which is good. So the place he works at is helping serve the medical community at this point. So there are some medical community members that are staying at the hotel that he works at. So I'm very thankful and blessed that he still has a job through this, but his hours have been kind of reduced, but he is still getting the hazard pay. So he's been around more, which has been a good and bad thing depending on the day.
Yes, I understand. Yeah, the spousal disruption and some folks dealing with having to obviously teach school to their kids and whatnot. It's a very unique time, and my apologies for your cat. I feel you 100%, having lost our lab puppy just about 10 days ago to a rare heart disorder out of nowhere. So that has been a major major void in our family. And I do know from our last video chat, Cara, that your cat was an active participant in our call. So I love that. I know cats have a mind of their own, and they rule what they rule. So you mentioned a little bit about your instructional design and some obviously spotlight on that with all that's been going on. What is it that drives you to do what you do, Cara?
Oh, great question. I fell into this very much like a lot of folks in that learning development space. About 12 years ago, I worked at a call center and got promoted into a role that had this tiny little piece of training. And I remember like after the first time I did it, I was like, I love this and this is really neat. And that kind of like took off with my career, and I knew that's what I wanted to do the rest of my life. So for me, it's all about making it easier and making it better for somebody to be the best that they can be in their job, but also feel like that organization cares enough about them to keep them. So I really like being in a role where not only can I kind of build that content knowledge of, this is the business, this is how we kind of do things, here's the standards and expectations of how you need to do your job, right? But you're currently in this role. How do you get to this role? And what steps, what curriculum, what guidance do you have to where you know what's expected here and you can upskill to get to there? That is something I think really special and instrumental, I think, for a lot of instructional designers is having a piece of somebody's success. I mean, that's amazing, right? I mean, knowing that somebody is happy and engaged in what they're doing, I mean, that's what it's all about.
Yeah, good for you. Yeah, so it is interesting how some people dream of being whatever they're doing with their life, and others fall into it and learn to love it, or basically are able to make the most of those unique life circumstances. So speaking of life circumstances, I know you mentioned a few things with your husband's work and some of the displacement you have working at home. Is there any other additional personal impact through COVID, and anything in particular you feel like coming out of this, if there is a silver lining, for obviously being incredibly respectful to those that are fighting the battle and on the front lines, the healthcare workers and paramedics and whatnot, as well as those impacted. But just curious to get your perspective of how beyond what we've discussed, this has impacted you.
Sure. So I mentioned earlier that I'm also a student on top of a full-time staff member. So having my coursework kind of stop kind of dead in its tracks and move to a different medium has been interesting. So the last class that I'm taking has been a pretty intensive research class, and it's like the last class that I need for my coursework. And it's very difficult to translate that to an online environment, what we were doing. So, just seeing kind of, I think, the humanity and the good in, instructors not just caring about the content, but also caring about you as a person. My professor emailed, I think, every single one of us multiple times, are you okay? Don't worry about this class. I care more about you as a person versus what this is doing. You can stay in contact with me after this class. If you need help after this class, I'm here, but I care more about you as a person than you getting through all this content right now. And that was really nice to see. And another thing too that the university has done with all the courses being online is I've been really excited about the embracing of the technology. So for example, a lot of the faculty I support would have their office hours on like one day a week, and it would be certain hours, right? And they were lucky if they got like one student, but now they offer them via Zoom. They're saying they're getting more people taking advantage of it. It's easier for them to engage. They're not having to physically go somewhere. They just open up their computer, get on their iPad, and can get plugged right in and get that instant contact with that faculty member. A lot of faculty have told me, I'm going to keep those online office hours even after all this is going, because I'm getting so much more engagement and so many great questions. And, I feel like people are wanting that contact with me that maybe I didn't have in that before all this happened. So that's also been really great to see.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, and I know that has been the adjustment to the technology and getting used to it. I know several of our friends have said, let's do a Skype, let's do a Zoom so that we can stay connected. I'm sure we'll continue that And I know my family, my extended family, we're definitely going to use that technology to do more family events that we hadn't done before. So with that said, I'm wondering, based upon your interest in technology and what it is that you do and your reference point, are there any other suggestions you might have, or things you've heard your fellow HR professionals adjusting to or doing creatively in this unique environment?
Sure. So a couple of issues I think that were kind of bubbling around before all this hit, at least at the university, was there was really a big push to have more kind of family-friendly, flexible, different schedules. So, for example, there was a committee on our staff advisory council about, how can we have different flex schedules, and how can we be more accommodating to folks that are maybe, taking care of their parents or taking care of sick children. Like, how can we make something a little bit more family friendly and inclusive? And I feel like a lot of the issues with that and the barriers were very much the old kind of pomp and circumstance. Well, that's the way we've always done it. We don't need to change. And so now that we have a different dynamic of working, where we see folks, like you said, John, helping school their children and taking care of everything, and they're still being productive, right? So I think that argument of, productivity equals a butt in a seat in the office, I'm hoping that has changed, right? So that I think has been nice out of it. But the other thing too is really focusing on clear communication, and not spreading rumors, not spreading any kind of fear about this. Especially when all this happened, people were kind of like really worried, like, is the university am I going to lose my job? Like, am I not going to have any way to work? And so I think for HR especially, being super proactive, especially with those frequently asked questions, anticipating what those questions are, and adding that into the communication coming from the organization leaders. So like the president of the university had this really nice statement, but then you read it and you're like, oh my gosh, I have no idea what that means. Like, it's very nice and it's put together, but what does that mean for me? What does that mean for my office? What does that mean? All these questions. But being proactive, having that, if you have more questions, instead of just sending an email here, you can, but here's this ancillary material of, what does this mean for me? What does this look like in the future? Anticipating that, I think, has been super, super critical, because I think everybody kind of has this pinch of anxiety about it. So I think really focusing on that human element of the communication and what we do, I think has been really critical to the success of managing this for each organization.
Sure. Yeah, I definitely agree. Clear communication is paramount, especially in the time of crisis and unknown, the lack of clarity and sometimes hope in some regards, when it was so initially, when all this hit us with the pandemic, and what it was going to mean for us, personally and professionally, and our health and our loved ones and family. And I as the leader of our firm, and in my communication, have tried to be as forthright and honest. And when I don't know the answer to something, I'll let you know I don't know the answer, and giving people clarity the best that you can. But you can never cross every T and dot every I, and you do the best you can. So I appreciate that. Yeah, communication clarity is great suggestion. So obviously we're doing today's video chat because of the confines of the stay-at-home order and the lack of large gatherings, although I know in the coming time frame we're going to have some of that lifted, at least it appears, and I hope everybody does that in a safe and conscientious way to everyone. So the idea was to bring Disrupt HR to Columbus, which we are doing. We're obviously doing it in a very different way now, based upon the pandemic outbreak and all the things that we've changed our life. But I'm just curious as to your personal experience with Disrupt, as well as your enthusiasm about being a part of the original 13 and speaking eventually at an event for us.
Sure. So I heard about Disrupt HR, I want to say maybe a year, year and a half ago. I have a friend that runs the Disrupt HR in Phoenix, Arizona. His name's Mike Simmons. And he told me all about it and he shared some videos with me. And I know that I think Jennifer McClurg, he actually had her on his podcast talking about it. So he sold it to me, but he's also very charismatic and good at selling anything to anyone. But he just basically said, this is all about adding value. It's not just people up there just talking, but it's very structured. And I think that you'd really like to be a part of it. And I could see you being a part of this. I was like, okay. And so, I went to the website and I looked and I was like, well, tartar sauce, like I don't see one in Columbus. But then eventually I saw that you all had got it in Columbus. And I think I reached out and there was an employee of yours that I spoke to and I was like, hey, I want to get involved. I want to figure all this out. And when I learned that this is going to be part of Columbus, I was like, I want to be part of it because I think for me, the biggest thing that I have problems with at conferences, obviously, one, I go to conferences because I love the people and I love networking. I love making kind of in person connections. If I've connected with someone on social media, like, actually extending that virtual handshake, if you will, right? Or I guess now it'd be elbow bump, whatever. But the second one, and an issue that I have is I don't want to go to a presentation and the first 5-10 minutes hear about somebody talk about how great they are and everything that they've done. I don't care. Give me the content, right? Give me the content, give me resources, give me ideas, inspire me, like get my butt on fire to when I go back to work I'm saying, hey, I went to this great conference and like here's all these great ideas, right? That's what Disrupt HR I think is to me, because you don't have all that. It's basically you get on stage, you give your content, you deliver it in a way that is very engaging, and you can get a lot of different perspectives that way versus your traditional conference is usually what, sessions of 45 minutes with, again, a lot of kind of padding in. So I feel like it kind of deconstructs that padding around a lot of traditional presentations to where it is just targeted information that people can be a part of. And I was like, I definitely want to be a part of that.
I love it. You made me think of the saying, put up or shut up, right? You got to get right to it. Don't want a bunch of ads or telling me how great you are. I certainly appreciate that. And having been an active participant in it, a sponsor, as well as a speaker, it's certainly dynamic and a ton of fun. And we will have that at an eventual time. I don't know when that is. And we'll do it in a way that's safe for everyone. So we'll be respectful. In the meantime, we'll continue these communications and make sure that we're bringing relevant content to the community that will be helpful as people navigate through these times. So, Cara, I really appreciate your time today. I wish you nothing but the best, especially with your little kitty, and keep him in my thoughts. And I'm so glad that you have the time to spend with him. And at the same time, we'll continue to stay in touch. And for those of you that are out there that we can help in any way, please do not hesitate to reach out virtually. Again, Cara North 11 at Cara North 11 to connect with her and continue to keep an eye out for updates from Disrupt HR Columbus. And for now, I'm signing off. This is John Bernadovich, and we will talk to you guys soon. Take care.